Next up, we're very pleased to introduce Warren Kibbe. Among his roles at Duke, he is a vice chair and professor in the Department of Biostatistics and Bioinformatics. And he's going to be talking with us about the National COVID Cohort Collaborative.
Great, thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Michael, for inviting me. And I think what's really exciting, and Dean Claughton highlighted that this morning, is that here at Duke we have such great depth of research excellence and expertise. This is now the third COVID symposium, and I guess I'll say, as a relatively recent comer to Duke, I'm amazed at the depth of expertise we have here, and we're engaging, of course, both in our communities inside Durham, Chapel Hill, the region, across the state, as we've heard today, and across the country and across the world. And I'm going to talk about something that we're doing nationally with the CTSAs, and how we're using N3C, the National COVID Cohort Collaborative, to aggregate EHR data from the various CTSA organizations. And just to see if I can get to move forward. There we go. And something we've heard about, of course, today is just how important machine learning algorithms and best practices are to understanding COVID. And we really want to be able to use the data we're generating for drug discovery, for improving therapeutic options, reducing disease severity, and of course, coordinate. And I guess the preface behind, or the rationale behind N3C, is we really want to have this comprehensive clinical data set, at the very least, from our academic medical centers. And you're going to hear about some other activities that are bringing in EHR data from the community practices as well, but I won't be talking about that. So from a data use standpoint, N3C really has a very, I think, important set of principles, and that's share the data widely and wisely. And I won't go into all these details, but N3C has really taken a lot of effort to try to maximize the accessibility of EHR data from organizations like Duke and the other CTSAs. And it's not limited to CTSAs. Actually, we're having more and more organizations that are not CTSA organizations putting their data into N3C, or at least signing the agreements, and I'll get to that in a minute. Another principle for N3C is we want to make sure that everybody who contributes to N3C is provided recognition, and we understand who to attribute that recognition to. And so there's actually a very sophisticated model inside of N3C to make sure that everyone who contributes, everyone who does, either contributes data, contributes algorithms, actually works inside the environment, gets credit for that. And again, that's a really important part of N3C. And of course, this is only a snapshot of a few of the folks. These are really the people who are building the N3C infrastructure and the governance, and making sure it actually all works. I can't recognize everybody by name, but you can see there are a lot of folks in a lot of different organizations, and those numbers continue to build. So what is N3C? And since I'm presenting this at a data science symposium, I'll get a little bit into the weeds. There's really 4 different networks, 4 different interchange standards that can contribute to N3C. They're the ACT network, or the ACT network, which is made up of many sites that have I2B2, like Duke. Trinetics, which is a commercial health interchange network. You can contribute through the Trinetics infrastructure and data model. PecorNet, and we're going to hear from Keith Marcello next about PecorNet and the PecorNet COVID data model. That's actually how Duke is going to be contributing to N3C, is through the PecorNet data model. And then OMOP, which is part of Odyssey. And for a number of reasons, the N3C architecture itself is based on OMOP. So there's an ingestion process where all these different models, common data models are ingested. They're all transformed into the OMOP representation, harmonized. And then that goes into the infrastructure for sharing and analyzing. So just a different way of looking at that is we're bringing in data from these different networks and putting them into a common pipeline and going through and verifying, validating, and then sharing all that information. So much of this is, of course, a work in progress. So 2 months ago, N3C didn't exist. And as of today, and I'll get to these numbers in a little bit, we have 6 different sites that have contributed their data into the beginning of the pipeline, and 3 have made it through into the production environment. So again, just to highlight what that production environment looks like, there's a way for anyone to get into the secure data enclave if they have the right authentication and authorization to get into it. And the idea is that we really want to open that up to as many people as possible. There's dashboards, reports, studies, and of course, then the ability to reach down into the data and actually analyze it. And for the team that's building things, making sure that in fact, that infrastructure enables new kinds of data science. And on the right-hand side, there's some of the existing tools that are being plugged into this environment. And of course, there'll be many, many more tools in the future. So just a snapshot from last night. This is coming from 3 sites right now have made it through the entire ingestion process. There's roughly 2,400 COVID positive patients. So again, there's something that's very important about the way that the cases are being defined for N3C. And that's anyone who's at risk for COVID or has been tested for COVID is pulled through. So that's why there's almost 18,000 patients, but only 2,000 that are positive. And you can see that there are a lot of lab results for those 18,000 patients. And that's because we're pulling all the data from EHR for roughly 2 years previous to their diagnosis into N3C. And just to show that there are people already doing some really interesting things with this. This is from Joel Saltz at Stony Brook. He generated a random forest model, which was trained on 200 of those COVID patients, and 100 required ventilation, 100 did not, and ended up developing a very nice model. And you can see on the right-hand side, or maybe you can't see on the right-hand side, that there is a reasonable separation of the patients that needed ventilation and those that didn't. And of course, the validation was done against all COVID patients in N3C. So from just from an organizational standpoint, N3C has a number of different work streams on partnership and governance, on phenotype and data acquisition, on data ingestion and harmonization, and then on analytics and then synthetic data. I'd encourage everyone who's interested to go and sign up. And you can sign up at covid.cd2h.org. And there is a button there that you can enroll and get access to the infrastructure and of course join all of our calls. Make sure these slides are available to everyone. There's lots of, again, open resources to participate in N3C. And with that, I am happy to take questions.